Was Days Gone a failure or a flop? So this is going to be a two-part story coming from Wesley LeBlanc at Game Informer. So the original story was published on January 6th. Days Gone has sold at least 9 million copies, according to its director. Yesterday, Game Informer reported that Sucker Punch production samurai game Ghost of Tsushima has sold more than 8 million copies. Quite the feat, especially for a new IP from the developer. According to former Days Gone director Jeff Ross, Pacific Northwest Zombie titles sold even more copies than Ghost of Tsushima, but instead of the warm reception Ghost of Tsushima received for its sales, PlayStation viewed it as a big disappointment. They quote, "At the time I left Sony, December 8, 2020, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies," Ross wrote in a quote tweet of Game Informer's Ghost of Tsushima story about its latest sales milestone. "It's gone on to sell more and then a million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment." And they continue, "This isn't necessarily a surprising sentiment from Ross, as others have pointed out Sony and PlayStation's awkward PR play for the game. As noted by Benji Sales, a popular video game sales and business analyst on Twitter back in January of 2020, Days Gone was the best-selling PS4 exclusive on PSN in 2019, and it also held a spot in the top 10 best-selling digital games for the entire year. Benji Sales even joked that Sony won't do PR on the sales success of the game, but it'll keep pointing it out for them." Back in April of 2021, Ross alluded to the fact that Days Gone did not make enough money to greenlight a sequel for the sequel Ben pitched to PlayStation, and he also shared some details on what Days Gone 2 would have been like. Ross has expressed his disappointment in the lack of further Days Gone development. There's probably something to be said of Ross's departure from the studio following the release of Days Gone, which he's now revealed was viewed by local management, likely local Sony and PlayStation management, as a big disappointment. And then he goes on to say the former Ben director touched further on his initial tweet in the reply section, revealing that he's not sure if current Ben developers are unhappy with management. In reply to someone asking if that's the case, Ross said, "In my case, there were years of issues to work through." He also revealed that the lack of official sales discussion from Sony and a possible sequel wasn't ever explained well, citing in a different tweet that despite that, former Sony Executive Entertainment Worldwide Studios chairman Sean Layden, who left the company in 2019, was Days Gone and Ben's biggest advocate. So that came out, and then a couple days later, there was an update to the story. A day later, they wrote, so yesterday, Game Informer reported that Days Gone director Jeff Ross and Bend Studio latest game sold more than Ghost of Tsushima, which recently hit a milestone of selling 8 million copies. However, in a recent live stream with former God of War and Twisted Metal director David Jaffe, Ross revealed that his source for these sales numbers was a now defunct website called GameStat, which tracks PlayStation trophy data as reported by Push Square. Here's what Ross said. "Where I got this data from, I had access to a lot of telemetry, and I could see stuff and where we were at 5 million copies. When we were announced at 5 million copies, the telemetry was at 5.8 million. There are basically resales or shared disks. I was actually using an external website. I think they're offline now, but they're using a trophy data, and it lined up with our internal telemetry data. So for me, it's like good enough." Ross then said that when leaving Sony, you don't necessarily get final numbers for game sales. Ross also said that as a creative director, he didn't have access to the complete official Sony numbers. "I think GameStat still has that data archived," Ross continued, "based off 8 million mark. It matched our telemetry, so I'm like, good enough. So maybe it was 7.7 million-ish, maybe it was 8.2 million-ish. I don't know." Following the stream, Ross tweeted that today that he stands by the Days Gone sales numbers he revealed earlier this week, and that in using GameStat to cross-reference telemetry he referred to above, each set of data verified one another. During Jaffe's stream, Ross also said the telemetry he's referring to was seen by him before Days Gone was released as a PlayStation Plus title in 2021. So, yeah, continuing on, the players that earned the trophies from the used copies of Days Gone would be lumped into the players that purchased new copies of Days Gone, thus skewing the total numbers Ross cited as copies sold. So while Days Gone likely did sell millions, the 8 million copies sold plus 1 million on Steam is likely not completely accurate. Ross also clarified that when he said Days Gone was disappointment to local studio management, he was referring to upper management within Bend Studio and not necessarily PlayStation or Sony management. So my question to you, one, what do you make of the article? But the real question I have for you is like, was Days Gone a failure or disappointment?
So I'll address the question right off the bat that is being, I guess, the big article headline, which is, whether or not they sold 8 million copies or not. To which the answer is, I don't care, because I don't think it means anything. A
Mhm.
game can sell 8 million copies, but what was the price it was being purchased at? When was it being purchased? Why was it being purchased? There's a whole lot of information in there. I'm willing to assume a lot of these purchases were not day one. I'm
Mhm.
willing to bet a lot of these purchases were on mass discount. And I'm
Mhm.
willing to believe that a lot of these purchases were after 3 months, if not longer.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, the game is garbage. Now, to some people, it may not be, but for a lot of people, the biggest thing was like, this game is not a lot of substance. And I still hold to this very day, I don't understand why Sony thought a game that was about massive amounts of zombies with a biker was going to be a good idea. I still don't. I don't know what they thought was going to be relatable about a guy that looks like Marcus Phoenix from Gears of War with a biker jacket on facing a horde of zombies. It's not exciting to me. You already have Last of Us, which I don't even like, but I respect as being a really well done game because everybody else seems to. But they seem to do the whole apocalypse thing a lot better. And from what I played of Days Gone within the 2 hours that I played of it before I said, I threw in the towel and just said, this is boring as hell. I can't do it. You know, it's a life to me, it's a lifeless game. And I think that even if it's sold well, it has nothing to do with the game itself. It had to do with the fact that it was a first party Sony title. People are preconditioned to believe that these games are really good. And when you see a
That's
game
me.
drop in price rapidly, you probably buy that just to test it, because that's what I did. I didn't think it was going to be that good because I'd seen reviews of it. But I thought, well, it's been, I think it was like almost a full year since it come out, and it was like $20. So I said, screw it. I'll try it. Worst case, it was only $20, but at least now it's probably been patched a bunch, so it shouldn't be a complete buggy mess. And within 2 hours, I said, okay, even if it's not a buggy mess, the problem is still that I can't attach to anything in this, and the gameplay is boring as hell.
Yeah.
So was it a
So
flop? It may not have been technically in terms of like how many copies it sold, but I personally don't care because I don't want to see another one.
see, for me, I being the Sony pony I am, platinum the game. I thought the game was good. Like, I think the problem I had with that game is that it is a decent game, but you have to remember the when this was coming out. Like, Days Gone was right around the time like we had gotten like think of the games that came out for PS4. Like, you have so many new IPs. You have Ghost of Tsushima. You have Horizon Forbidden West. You have God of War, which I know not a new IP, but let's be honest, it was a pretty big reboot. Like, Sony was crushing it in terms of their exclusives. Like, their exclusives were banger after banger. And Days Gone, while a good game, didn't meet that pedigree that the other games were hitting. Uh, mm, and I think it was a consequence of the reviews and how the reviews were done and stuff, because as I recall, a lot of reviewers didn't like the game, and it was um and I can see why. Like, that game is way too long and it's way too drawn out. So you talk about who wants to play against massive hordes in a biker. I thought it was awesome, like going around in this empty world, and like fighting those hordes was some of the best parts of that game. Like, taking out hundreds, if not thousands, of horde zombies in unique and creative ways and environments was awesome. I loved it. That was the best part of the game. Problem is, you don't get to that until 30 hours in, 40 hours into the game, and that's your hook, and it's not there from the very beginning, and I think that was a detriment. So even when I was playing the game, I'm like, I liked it. I had fun, but by the end I was like, this is way too long. Like, you think it's ending, and then it opens up a whole third part. Like, it opens up like a what I would have almost felt would have been DLC, and it drags on and on and on. And so when you're a reviewer and you have a time crunch, you have a situation where you have to go through. Now, that's not to say it's the reviews that killed this game. I think those hindered the success from the sales perspective, but even from just a pedigree in terms of what we expect and what we get from Sony exclusives, sony Sony Bend's Days Gone was probably one of the weaker ones. um Certainly better than what Order 1886 was, but generally it is not. It is a little bit lower than the standard that the rest of those games that Sony's studios were putting out. Do I think it's a bad game? No. I think it's a troubled game, or I think it has problems, and I think it kind of leaves it as a good, if not, a good average game, but nothing that, it's not going to be in the hallmarks like the other Sony exclusives were. And Sony is going for those big heavy hitters. And so to not hit that mark means that, yeah, you're going to go. And I think Bend is lucky, and I think Bend has potential that they're not, shut down or closed or anything, because it kind of feels like you need to, you need to like make it or you're out with Sony. And the fact that they're still around, I'm excited to see what they do. But yeah, Days Gone had potential. I could see a sequel. I can see a sequel doing very well. Like, I feel like a lot of people are playing it now, and a lot of people do like it, but I think it needs to kind of have a rehaul. So I don't think it's a failure, but I don't think it's a success either from a PlayStation perspective.
I'll go to the most painful thing I can say about it. I don't think it's capable of shining because it's an unoriginal idea. It's just a game with more zombies, to which I go, okay, what else you got? Like, is there something, like, you tell me, you've played the whole game. Is the story like really, is it high caliber level storytelling? Because most that I've heard is it's not that great.
I liked it. I liked it for the most part. Like I said, I think it was just drawn out too long. And so for me, that was the issue I had with it.
Because like every view that I've seen of it doesn't really show anything shining about it. Like, it just shows like it's either fine or it's like it's severely missing something.
Yeah.
And like I said, it may technically not be a flop, but like, it's not exactly a game that people remember. Like, I'm pretty sure most people forgot this game was a thing until this story came out. And they're like, oh yeah, the fucking biker thing. And I still I still don't get it. What made you think a biker was going to be a really relatable character? Like, no. I don't see what's supposed to... I don't even remember the guy's name. That's how much I don't care. Every time I looked at the trailers for it, I'm like, all it does is remind me of that really, really, really bad biker game, Road to Hell Retribution. Ride to Hell Retribution, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's all it makes me think of. Because anytime I see anything relating to bikers in terms of video games, it's like, it's always bad. Or it's usually like some random little villain gang in a GTA game kind of deal. Like, it's never anything like... I can never imagine a Game of the Year high storytelling game to be a biker game. I can't see it. So whenever I see a game coming out and their big main character is a biker dude, I'm thinking, okay, so there's no substance to this game. It's just going to be, it's like, sure, it might just have some good action sequences, but like, I don't feel like I'm going to get invested in anything. To which, if I wanted to just play a game with action, I'll get invested in anything, I'll pay Back 4 Blood. Because that's what Back 4 Blood is. There's no substance to it, but at least it's fun. And it also apparently doesn't take 30 hours to get anywhere.